Welcome to Translation Mysteries. In this video, I'll be using live footage from my Xenoblade Chronicles 3 stream. But first, I want to make one thing clear. Localization is an art, not a science. There's almost never a right answer, so these are just my opinions at the end of the day. With that out of the way, let's get into it.
相争う2つの巨大な軍事国家ケベスとアグヌス。生きるためには何が必要？水？食料？そうじゃない。
He said, in Japanese he said no, but in English he said certainly. It's probably because something follows. Let's see.
ここで必要なのは人の命だ。
Okay. So first difference we've already run into is, in Japanese, it said, do they need food, water? No, what they need is human life. But in English, he said, do they need food, water? Certainly, but the most important part is human life. That is clearly different, but maybe when you learn more about the game, it ends up being the same. I don't know.
互いに命を削り合い、削った命は自らの命へと変わる。そして命を削られた者は無黒となる。
Also, the English lines for that section about taking life was more flavorful, more creative in the way that it was written. Like the flames of life and the essence of life and that stuff. That wasn't actually in the Japanese. In Japanese, it just said life. There was no flames. There was no essence. It was just life. So they spiced it up a little bit in English. Same meaning though. I knew he was gonna say it. Kattazo! What's interesting about that line is that it's translated correctly, but the thing is that from the intro, when they were talking about what does it take for us to keep living, it takes life. And in English it said essence and flame and life and all that stuff, but the word that they used in Japanese was inochi. And so like when they say inochi wa warera no teni or whatever they said, it feels like it calls back to that moment in the beginning where they were saying like we need life for our lives to continue. Right? So it sounds more like it ties into that in Japanese than it does in the English. Not that the English doesn't tie into that, because they obviously were talking about life in English as well, but it stands out more in Japanese to me because in Japanese there wasn't really as much of a flavor added to it. They just kept using the word inochi as far as I can remember. So since they said inochi again, it ties back into the cutscene from the beginning more so than it does in the English. Like, it feels like we got the thing that was our goal more so in Japanese than in the English. It's still true in the English, obviously, though. Also, in Japanese, they didn't say your, they just said life. And so it, like, works in both ways, right? Life is ours. We've gotten life force. In Japanese, he said Noa no kuseni, which feels more like there's more of a past to their relationship, right? He said stupid Noah in English, which obviously he might have a basis for saying that, or not, who knows, with the English line. But in Japanese, he makes it sound like Noah is supposed to be a bad fighter, so stop dodging these moves and get hit. Um, like he already has this understanding that Noah's supposed to be, he's supposed to lose, or like he doesn't like Noah for some reason or something like that. Sparkin seems like it's supposed to be like a curse word. You damn dead weight or whatever.
撃てる限りアーツを撃ちまくれ。狙いはどこだっていい。か乱すんなよ。気を引きらそれでいい。俺たちの狙いはあの大荷物だ。ヨレンを成績最下位だろ。なんでまた。だがあの回復能力は本物だ。だからよ。
Okay, another thing there. He said lame duck in English, but onimotsu in Japanese, nimotsu is like luggage or baggage, so it sort of sounds more like he's saying that the healer is, I don't know, the thing that's holding them back. In a way, he's trying to say that the team has to carry the burden of keeping the healer alive. Oh yeah, he said kuso, which normally you just translate to like an English curse, damn it, or whatever you want, depending on the rating of your game. But here, spark is the bad word. I feel like for the most part they're sticking close to the Japanese script, and they're just making it as natural as possible, but keeping the meaning. Every now and then there's like tiny nuances that are different, but overall, it feels much closer to the Japanese than, let's say, Xenoblade Chronicles 1.
そうすることが当たり前だった。それが俺たちの世界だった。あのことが起こるまでは。
あのことが起こるまで until that thing happened. The English is much more natural than what it would be if they said until that thing happened. Until that day is definitely better. So far, I really like the English script.
敵であっても命の安らぎは必要だ。それが送り人である俺の役目だ。
Interesting, because okuribito, translated to officer, they get the meaning across. Okuru means to send, so okuribito is the person that sends. So in the Japanese, it's more obvious, like the person that sends them to the afterlife, I guess. Offseer, I guess, is to see them off. So the person playing the flute is seeing the dead people off to the afterlife. It's pretty much the same thing, but maybe slightly.
俺そんな喋り方か。
うっせえ、別に真似したわけじゃねえよ。さ、新規臭い話はこれくらいにして、帰って風呂入ろうぜ。汗と血で気持ち悪い。
A little bit of a different nuance. Also, what's interesting is that in Japanese, she definitely said ofuro, which means the bath. So in Japan, and I think that people know this already, people love taking baths. They love baths, and getting into a bath or like a hot spring or whatever it is, that's supposed to be like very relaxing, right? But I guess they decided in English that doesn't really translate over. Like, let's get out of here, let's go home and take a bath. So they changed it to hit the showers, which feels kind of different. But I guess they're sort of still going for that, do something to get sort of a bit of relaxation going after, working out or working up a sweat or something like that. Yeah, that shower bath difference is not really that big of a deal, but it is an interesting difference.
見つけたぜ。
Finders keepers? She just said I found it in Japanese.
使えるもの。
なあ、送り人始めたのってあれからだよな。
え？うん。まあね。
Oh, our boy.
まだなのか。
The English tells us what it's being talked about here, but the Japanese is more vague. She just says, "Still?" question mark. Um, hopefully the next line actually explains in Japanese.
いや
No.
吹っ切れたとは言わないけど自然になった、仲間たくさん送ったからさ、いろい
So in the Japanese, that is a little bit more vague.
ろあるんだ。送る側にも送られる側にも。
ふん。
俺よりあいつの方だよ。
Yeah, so like when you're translating from Japanese into English, there's a lot of cases where you have to be more explicit than what the Japanese is saying, because right there in the Japanese, Noah said, instead of me, him, right? He didn't say anything about worrying, but in English, you wouldn't be like, instead of me, him, right? That's very weird. So they added what he actually means into the text.
今日また無理してた。
Pushed himself too hard again today in Japanese.
仕方ねえさ。もうずっとだからな。謝り損なったんだよ、あいつ。
Ah.
だから。
お戦闘査定の話か。ボーナスポイントだったら今日は俺の独り占めだぜ。
はあ？んなわけねえだろ。私の方が稼いだっつーの。
いやいやいや、敵の中型こかしたのは俺だろ。ポイント高いって。
よく言うぜ。あと数秒回復が遅れてたらぶっ倒れてたくせに。
いやいやいやいや、あれわざと。わかんない？お前に花を持たせようっていうこの俺の優しい心遣いが。
はあ？なんだよそれ。
A Muppet. Definitely translated by non-Americans, because we don't call people Muppets, but that's hilarious. She didn't actually say anything like an insult. She just said "Nanda yo sore wa." So in Japanese, she just said, "What are you talking about?" In English, they decided to be a little bit more flavorful here, and she called them a Muppet. But I was pausing because Lance also said something that sort of implied a little bit more. So he was saying, like, I was being nice, but, like, he was implying that he is a nice person overall, where in the English, they didn't really say that.
ランツって意外と豆だよな。
She said you're being very diligent in English, but in Japanese, she was implying that he's not usually very diligent, or, like, his personality doesn't seem like he would be diligent, but he is. Because she said "igai ni," which is unexpectedly. That's an interesting difference. I feel like so far, the differences that have come from the Japanese and the English is that the Japanese, in its writing, tends to imply a little bit more about the characters than the English has, right? Which means that in Japanese, the character development actually comes through a little bit more often than in the English, which tends to have a little bit more flavor in the text, but the character development isn't as implied in the text that's being used. I think the translations so far have been pretty good. They don't go like too far away from what the source text is saying. They basically tell you what the source text is saying, and they give you a little bit more flavor on top of it. That's all for now. There will be more videos coming soon, so if you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to discuss the translations live, be sure to drop a follow on Twitch at BrooklynB_JP. We'll also be doing a translation stream of Yokai Watch 4 once I hit 200 followers, so all the more reason to hit that follow button on Twitch. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.